conversation, please welcome author, columnist, screenwriter, and YouTuber Chetan Bhagat. It's over to you, Chetan.
Okay, hi everybody. Hi Taapsee.
Hi, good evening. नहीं, good morning. क्या time चल रहा है यार? I'm sorry, I'm jet lagged a little bit somewhere.
It's around 2 o'clock in India.
So
I don't
good
know
afternoon.
which time zone you're from. I have a very, very interesting session name. I was like stumped and I actually asked you who put this name, Alpha Female. And then, so why have you been...
I was just so glad they called me for Alpha. I was like, really? Yeah, I will come if that's the topic.
It is a is it a compliment?
I take it as a compliment.
Okay, so the session's titled Alpha Female, and no better person than her, because I think I've found her. I've interacted with her in the past. We've done a lot of things on YouTube as well. And I find Taapsee to be not only just a great actor, but a great thinker also. And you will see this at the end of this session, hopefully. She's told me not to talk about politics, which I won't do. So,
Thank God.
No, we won't do. But we will talk about some sort of gender politics, not BJP Congress politics. There is politics everywhere, right? Because of this alpha male. So firstly, when we say alpha male or alpha female, what does it mean to you? What is alpha?
Dictionary-wise, it says someone who's supposed to be very successful and leader in her own regard, right? So that is what the definition was in my head always. And then when movies came in and we only saw alpha male there, alpha female was not really displayed or shown off much. So it took me a time when I had to read the definition back and understand, so what is alpha female, so that I can understand that what should I bring in new, what is missing that I feel I should bring in. And hence, the definition had to be revisited. And then it still holds the ground for me. It has to be someone who's not just successful, but leader in her own regard.
Yes. So, I mean, it's words like power, success, leadership, decisive, risk-taking. These are what they call alpha traits. Yeah. Traditionally, it's in the jungle, like the chimpanzee who's an alpha will get all the females. Yeah. And the beta males are like hanging about.
Alpha is equal to attractive in some
Alpha is attractive, alpha is strong. I mean, it's a guarantee that the genes that will come from that male, will create very healthy offspring or smart. I mean, it's basically a nature's tool to do that. Alpha female, honestly, why it's hard to find a definition sometimes is because it's a relatively new term. Why it's also interesting to me is whenever you say he's an alpha male, so he's very successful, he's the CEO, he makes so much money, it's very attractive. But is an alpha female more intimidating than attractive, or is it attractive?
It's so attractive that it's intimidating. That is what I would put it as, because it's just too attractive a tag to be kept with a female, alpha female, because it's not just the solace to the eyes attractive. It's beyond that, which I guess gets intimidating because you're not used to sharing a certain kind of pedestal, I guess. So people who are not so secure about their pedestal position obviously get a little intimidated with the presence of someone who is at par, if not ahead.
Yeah. No, and I don't want to refer to my own works, but one of the books I wrote, One Indian Girl, I remember I wrote the book because I used to be in banking, and there was this girl who called her mother excited after bonus day. In investment banking, you can get very good bonuses. And she called her mother and said, "Hey mom, I made 3 crores this year." And the first thing the mother said was, "Ab tere se shaadi kaun karega?" Whereas if a boy had made that call, it would be a moment of celebration. It will be like, boys, wow, what a catch he is in the marriage market. He makes 3 crores a year. But when a woman makes 3 crores a year, the first reaction is, "Ab tere liye ladka kaise dhoondu?" So in that case, it gets intimidating. Is it true? I mean, is it societal or is it biological? Actually, I want your views that this thing that men are seen as success objects if women are objectified in physical beauty, men are also objectified as success. Like, whenever somebody is looking for a guy, तो पूछते हैं करता क्या है, कमाता कितना है. These questions are asked for men more than women. But when we talk of an alpha woman, is that something that women are even expected to do, or they is seen as something people want in women as much?
I don't know who to feel worse for, the man or the woman in this regard, because why the onus of some tangible success always rests on the shoulders of a man. And
you agree with that?
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, there was a couple of times when people asked me about the struggle of making it in Mumbai, making it in this industry, and of course there is struggle, but you know, if I compare it with the struggle of some boys who come from some other towns, smaller towns, and come here, the onus of making money to be able to feed a family or to be able to have a family is so much more on the man, which is obviously unfair because it's not equal. I mean, you can both run the family, if not the man or the woman. That's where we want to eventually reach, but if you're not there, that's why the whole tangible success responsibility rests on the shoulder of a man, not the woman. It's more, for women, it's like the bonus. मतलब अगर मिल गया success, tangible success, it's like, wow, okay, ठीक है, bonus है, but that was not really needed.
Yes.
It's a mandatory thing for the man. So that's why I said I don't know who to feel worse for, because the pressure is different, but on both the genders.
Of course it's there. And thank you for acknowledging that men also face some pressure, because normally that's not what we hear so much. What made you chase success though, then?
I have this, since childhood, I always wanted to be self-sufficient in my life. I did, as a kid, when I was told, okay, you'll not be given pocket money because, हमें नहीं पता, you might just misuse it. We want to control the child's expenses. So I said, okay, fine, I'll earn my own money. And that's why I started working when I was doing my college. So I always had this thing of not being dependent on someone and making my own way if nobody's providing me with a way. So I think that instinct in me carried forward from school, college, to the films I do or the path I've chosen here. Because everyone was like, no, there's no precedence to it. So this will not happen. So I'm like, but I want it like that. At max, what will happen? I'll fail. I'll learn something. I'll change my direction, and then I'll maneuver my way through. But don't tell me that, it can't happen. You can't attempt it. Don't tell me that. So that thing of just finding my own way by myself, being independent enough, is something that drove me to do the kind of stuff I've been doing since school, college, and even now.
So it all started with no pocket money, basically.
If you have the memory, that's the...
What was your mom so worried about? क्या करते आप pocket money के साथ?
I don't know. They were like, I don't know, पता नहीं क्या खरीदेंगे और क्या, मतलब, what will she get into? I don't know. It's a typical problem that Delhi parents, Delhi child's parents have, कि पता नहीं क्या करेंगे बच्चे पैसे के साथ.
And now you're a gender icon. I mean, from what you tell me, it's just something, a very humble need that I should be able to pay my own bills.
Yeah, just handle my own life by myself.
But now you are seen as this alpha female and, icon for women and telling the men that we can also do it. Is that a role you wanted?
I subconsciously didn't think that this will end up becoming the recall value people have for me. But I somehow feel like that has been the instinct always, right? So now I hear a lot of people who come to me saying, I want my kid, like a girl child, to become like you, because I don't want her to, be the oversensitive, dependent person. I want her to take control of her own life and be very nonchalant about it. So that's been a very common thing I've been hearing from a lot of parents who have these younger girl child and coming up to me and saying that. So that, I feel, is very beautiful. It's more than any compliment an actor can get about the performances or, क्या अच्छी film थी, आपने अच्छी acting करी. No, I would want my girl child to be as independent as you are.
Yeah.
So that's...
And it's great that I honestly feel like you're one of the few who not only has done very well, but you've also spoken very well about these things. And you say it in a very balanced way.
Yeah.
I like it, that you don't say that सारी गलती आदमियों की है.
No, it's not. I mean, I think bicycle has two tires. There's always a balance that's required to move ahead. We obviously we have to push ourselves, but little support didn't harm anyone.
Yeah, in fact, I saw some of your tweets, you had shared that you're not looking at work ki, I want to be the highest paid actress.
Yeah, no.
कुछ हैं?
I have two middle class needs.
आपकी तो मैंने देखा कोई A+, B+, C+ भी सिक्योरिटी नहीं है.
नहीं सर, मैं उसके लिए पैसे दे रही हूँ ना.
नहीं मतलब नहीं, because actually all that is also one way to look at it, but you are not looking at it. I mean, आपको लगता है कि
I don't have a bodyguard also, and that amazes a lot of people. I don't understand why. I mean, I can take care of my own body.
All right. But somebody with a lot of bodyguards keeps talking about you a lot.
Yeah, she loves me a lot.
And I have a theory for that. क्यों? पहली बात
if you get to know, tell me also.
I'll tell you.
That's the biggest mystery of my life.
मुझे समझ नहीं आई because I've seen her compare a lot with you and you with her, whereas you're a very different person. Very different person in the sense, of course, you're both actors, but you look at life very differently.
And
your
both,
backgrounds
both
are very
have
different.
curly hair, yes.
Yeah. So my theory as why that is I think it's the curly hair.
I also think so. I didn't know there was a patent to it. I would have applied first otherwise.
These are natural.
Now you are questioning it?
I don't know. I don't know.
My father also had curly hair. They are natural. I can prove it. Let the DNA test.
Okay. But does that bother you? Because some of the things, again, we are not going to discuss any individual. I'm not going to even take her name. But, and she is talented in her own way.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows who we are talking about. Okay, but certain comments were mean-spirited. And we don't have to repeat those comments. But they were mean-spirited about you. Not just about you, about your work, about the kind... Yeah, so did that bother you? Did that shock you? Did you feel amused? What was it?
So there are two sides to this. First, in the beginning, it was shocking because when you put someone at a pedestal in your head thinking, okay, this person is someone to look up to, you know, for someone like me who came from the kind of background I come from and trying to make my mark in the industry and whatever you may call it. So you look at someone who's made it and think, okay, you know, wow, we would like, that's somewhere good.
So you used to, at one point, she was your hero.
Yeah, I mean, you look up to that person, you know, in certain regards. So... And when it comes from there and you least expect it because you don't think you've done something to receive that, you feel a little disappointed.
कुछ किया था आपने कोई ऐसे?
Yeah, मुझे भी नहीं पता यार. I really don't know. And I have exhausted all the possibilities in my head. So I have now given up on it. But the disappointment or the shock was because I had kept her at a pedestal in my head. That's the reason of disappointment. Not the kind of words that were used against me. I'll tell you why. Simple, I don't take myself too seriously. And you can't survive in this industry peacefully if you take yourself too seriously because the kind of things we hear about ourselves on daily basis, if I start taking it seriously, I don't think I will have a sane mind anymore. So you cannot take yourself too seriously. You should take your work seriously, but not yourself. So there's a difference to it.
Okay, that's nice. कभी आपने सोचा कि वो Z+ security पार करके जाके पूछो
नहीं यार
दीदी प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
इतनी हिम्मत और औकात नहीं है मेरी.
Okay. There's moving on from that topic. Only because this film is so big right now. Let's talk about Kashmir Files. Since you are also in the industry, and I think there are two aspects to it. One is what the film is about, the Kashmiri Pandit, so we can talk about it a little bit. And the second aspect, which is not being discussed as much, it's a very small film, like budget-wise. And it has done phenomenally well. It's being compared to Bahubali and Gadar in terms of box office. So that is just a spectacular achievement. And what does that, and people said that post-COVID, people are not going to go to movies, everybody's going to watch Netflix and Prime now, all this. But this movie has like just broken all those assumptions. Let's talk about that first, then we'll talk about the
But that's true, whatever you're saying. I mean, since the time theaters opened, I think when it was still 50%, I saw Badhai Do, and after that I haven't seen any film because I was busy shooting. But I really see the numbers and I see the I am more of an optimistic person, so I see the glass half full most of the times. Whatever might be the reason, or however it happened, the fact is it happened, and the numbers that it shown, I remember texting to one of my producers saying, so this proves that you don't have to get scared about how big your film is. If it's good, people will watch it. So I am actually looking at it from the point of view which you just mentioned, that if the small film like that can create those kind of numbers, it can't be a bad film. You can question the intentions of people, you can question the means and all of that, that's subjective. Please do that. You have a right to have an opinion. But the fact that it is good, that's why eventually it's lasting that long. It can't be a bad film for it to last that long. And that's the truth of the matter, and that's a fact. You have to live with it.
Yeah. Do you think it's also done very well because it talks about things which are not considered, I don't know, polite or, you know, it's very scary. I'm telling you as a writer, I've written columns and I've written a column in Kashmir Files also, which will come now this week, and I'm literally scared about it because it is very scary to talk about any Hindu concern in India because you are immediately branded. See, the moment I said the word Hindu, a lot of people immediately started thinking Sanghi hai. Communal hai. Modi ji ke piche laga hua hai. You know, but it is true that the Kashmiri Pandit genocide happened. It is true. It may be that the filmmaker has taken some creative liberty, maybe he has exaggerated, maybe he's not. That's, like you said, subjective. But hua to tha. Hua to tha. It is also true that we have lived in the 90s where there used to be bomb blasts every other month done by radical organizations, and that there was a vote bank politics going on. That government in power would not act against those organizations. And they would often target Hindu populations.
Well,
now, तो ये बोल नहीं सकते, बोलोगे तो बोलेंगे, like, you know, but this film said it, and it said it in an engaging, interesting way, in an entertaining way also maybe. So maybe that's why it's done well? Or do you think that is there, or you don't feel that?
No, that definitely, it just evokes the emotional side in a lot of people. And hence, it helps them to connect and receive a film in a certain way, which is totally subjective and is right. There is no film under the sun that has had 100% approval from the 100% audience, and it will differ film to film. So it's okay. It doesn't, see, today you talk about anything regarding religion, it will raise an eyebrow. You talk about any religion for that matter. The moment the religion word comes in, people will start judging you even before you've completed your sentence.
Yes.
That's what happens. But then if you still have the guts to go and make a film and people like it, then just like, they like it because they like it. Like, I can not like a film doesn't mean that you have to also not like the film. You can like the film. So who am I to judge your liking or disliking towards material of art? It's still art that's there and people are paying to watch it.
But there are people, plenty of respected people who have said it's a propaganda film, it's a communal film, it's a biased film, it's a political...
It is their opinion, and they have the right to have that opinion.
Okay.
Let's agree to disagree. That's the problem that we are facing right now. Why don't we agree to disagree? There's so many things that you might do and say, which I don't approve of, but doesn't mean that I can't sit and chat with you, right? We can agree to disagree. Let's settle at that.
Okay, that's good. I agree with that. But I agree with you. I am not disagreeing with you, and I think it's out there. And I think as somebody who writes, somebody has created something.
Yeah.
And what to me is shocking is a lot of people who keep talking about freedom of expression have a problem with freedom of expression of Kashmir Files. Yeah. That is a bit like, you know, strange.
It's convenient.
हमारा freedom of expression ज़्यादा अच्छा है. आप थोड़ा आपका style अच्छा नहीं लगा हमें बताने. So that is coming back to this gender roles and alpha female thing. I mean, you also said that this parent said, I don't want my daughter to be oversensitive. You used that word just now.
Yeah.
So do you think like a successful woman will become less sensitive, will be less feminine, will be like, are these things that are associated ki like why?
No, that's a very bad cliche that is associated with
Boss girl.
yeah, boss girl, that she won't be feminine and she has to be masculine or androgynous to be that. That's a very big myth that people have. So मतलब वो saying है ना, wearing the pants, they have taken it
Wearing the pants of the house.
Yeah, that they've taken it way too literally.
Yes.
Like it is probably a saying originated from a very misogynist way. The pants is about like who's the man in the house.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very sad cliche. Yeah, that's what I said. That the whole being sensitive is nice. Being oversensitive probably is something that might just not work for you in the longer run. When you have to make your way through areas which have been less treaded. So it's better that you learn to take certain hits as well, along with getting the success that you're getting.
Yeah. A woman who decides to have a career, you're in acting, it could be any profession, right? It could be a scientist, it could be a banker, it could be anybody. Do you think it's harder for women to balance work and home, career and home, that whole thing of being a mother, being a wife, being a bahu in India, added layer of complexity? I
haven't gone through so I form my opinions purely basis what I feel and I've gone through, since I have not been through that journey of being a bahu or a wife or a mother as of now, so I can't really comment on that. I'll tell you what is difficult is, if you receive success, then people question you. The means of how she received this success can never be obviously on her credentials. So
just elaborate that.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, she's reached here. Oh, because she's a woman, she got it relatively easy. Or she got like quicker means of reaching the success because she's a woman. So there's a problem if she's successful. If she's not successful, then they're like, obviously, yeah, the top posts can't be handled by her because, she's a woman, she has other things also in life to manage. So either way nahi jamta hai. So I don't understand ke matlab fir what exactly are we supposed to do? So that's a bigger trouble than anything else. To judge her, if she's successful, then you judge the means of getting successful. If she's not successful, then you just judge her, yeah, because she has so many other gender roles to play. That's why she, cannot really make it. So that gets transferred from generation to generation. And we need to break that chain somewhere. Because obviously we get to hear from the elder generation that, you need to be the one who will quietly serve at home. Let the other gender go out and earn the bread. And that's okay. That's how we divide chores. But then your work is not considered work enough, which is probably a 24-hour job that you're not really paid for. So that's not work enough. So that is where the perception of what you do is not significant enough keeps trickling down from generation to generation and ends up staying in your head that, okay, you are not supposed to just work. Work is not your thing, basically. So that chain needs to be broken somewhere.
So when you suggest it's a chain passed down the generations, is it societal beliefs and culture that is causing this, that men have to do this and women have to do this at home? Or is some of it also the biological instinct that, like for example, a father may find it, everybody's different, we cannot generalize, but men may say, okay, I'll go to office Monday to Saturday, I'll just go there, work and come and meet my kids on the weekend, that's fine. Whereas for a mother, when she goes to work, she's constantly thinking about her kids. Kya ho raha hoga? Is this a societal thing? Ki bhai, you are expected, you're a woman, you better be a good mother. Or is it biological too?
It's biological to an extent that we have a side that constantly thinks about back home. But we have a mind that can maneuver and make it work. Give her the liberty, give her the credit of the fact that if she wants to work, she will figure out her other ways and means to handle what is happening back home. You don't decide for her. Yeah? So that's how biologically, it's just that she has a mind that's there. She's not thinking ki acha ghar pe your husband is there, na, he'll take care of it. Like the other way it happens. When when the man goes out to work, it's like, yeah, the woman is there, she'll take care of it. It doesn't really happen the other way around. But she makes sure that she has her ways and means sorted to take care of what happens. And then obviously it's society-wise, it trickles down that you are supposed to be the one taking the back seat. I'll give you an example I know. One of the extended family members I know, the man and the woman both used to work, and the woman went out of the city to work because she didn't get the job that she expected out of her credentials to get. She got it outside the city. So she moved. And she moved in the sense like she used to come back home in weekends to meet the kids. And kids were under 10, both of them. So for a few months it worked. But after that, it became a big family issue that you can't be far away. The man is also working, but his workplace is closer.
But Papa ki touring job ho sakti hai.
Yeah,
Mummy ki touring job.
No, but he's not able to handle it well enough. So he wants the woman to be at home more than him. And she did take a back seat. She gave up the job. And she's been doing this and I've tried to have that conversation with her so many times, but I've never got a sensible answer. The maximum answer that comes to me is, yeah, someone had to take a back seat. So, you know, she was told by everyone around that she should take a break. So she decided to take a break.
Is this example, which is general, is the burden of compliance?
Yeah,
is the burden of being submissive on women?
So it's so strange, you know, that something that I relate with, not just as a woman, but also as an actor, our lives are governed by the perception of people around, more than what we would want to do. So as a woman also, you're always looking for validation, regardless you're an actor or not. As a woman, you're always thinking of how will people around perceive me as a woman. I'm a good woman or not a good woman. So I'm always trying to get that validation from the outside than thinking of what I really want to do. Same thing as an actor would do, right? Regardless of gender. So that's one thing where we are very badly stuck as a female.
You plan to settle down, get married, have kids.
Yeah, hopefully,
Lots
yes.
of kids. And right now you're doing very well. Okay, we'll ask that. Yeah. Settling down.
I'm so used to these terminologies.
It's a good thing. I will tell you. Let's talk about settling down after this for sure. Okay. But
I'm running around. He wants me to stop running around.
No.
Settle down.
You're very busy.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. I had to get you for a Zoom call once and it took a month to plan it. You're very busy, which is great. Right? You're doing great work. Have you thought about how it's going to all come out, or you'll just let things fall into place? The whole marriage, kids, work.
I genuinely don't have a plan for it. Though yes, I want to get married. I want to have kids, however it would happen. But I have no solid planning done for it, because life is what happens when you're busy making plans. Whatever plans I made 2 years back, COVID came and spoiled it all. So I've stopped making long-term plans now. But yes, eventually I would want to go in that direction as well.
So will that mean lesser work, or you'll be more selective about your work? Or
that's independent of my work, because my work selectiveness or non-selectiveness comes from which stage I am in my career. So there's a certain kind of films that I would do when I'm beginning my career, and then a certain kind of films I would want to do when I want to solidify my position or an image or a stand in the industry. And then there are certain kind of films that I want to do to push the envelope. And then there are films that you do where you know that now I will only do this kind of stuff for me to just enjoy the work I'm doing.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about settling down. Because it's actually something I talk about in my talks, motivational talks as well. Settling down is a purely Indian term. You will not find it in any other country. That let's settle down, they don't talk like this. They may say get a job, whatever, but they don't say settle down. Only we say. And I'll tell you where the word settle comes from. Settle ho jao. In our school, we did an experiment, sedimentation, in which you take mud and mix it in the water. And then you wait for it and the mud settles down. And when you make the diagram, you call it settle. That's what settle. That means do not move, nothing changes, no more risk taking, super predictable. The exact opposite of entrepreneurship, the exact opposite of what leads to growth and all. But the aim somehow is settle ho jao. So that's why I wanted to ask her that. And when you look at matrimonial ads, it's not me. So just because I'm reporting the news, it doesn't mean I support the news. ABP News knows this well. Jo ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai. If you open matrimonial ads, everybody wants a well-settled boy. Not just settled. Well-settled hona chahiye. And girls, they want homely. I am still trying to figure out what is non-homely girl. What is a homely girl? It is there in our ads.
No,
They want homely.
You asking me,
Are you homely?
This is a very funny thing. I love my home, if that's what homely means. I love to be at my home. Yeah, I mean, if that's what homely means.
Homely is euphemism for submissive. Homely just means baat sunegi. Yeah, that's what it means. I mean, is all the women who are out of the house now not homely? Do they run out of the house if they're not homely? I don't. Homely just means, okay, she'll prioritize others first. That's what it is. And it's there in our ads.
I don't know. I don't need... See, settle or homely, all these definitions, I probably form my own. For me, settle is, as you gave the example of that mud settling, probably that mud has so much of strength and power that it doesn't need to run around and find position. It is settled, it is settled down and now happily instructing whatever she wants to instruct in the world that is around.
Yeah.
I look at it like a settlement.
May you never settle down.
I have too much of gravitas in me and I have settled down. And I'm instructing
May you
things
never
around.
settle down. Let's shift topics a bit. I want to talk about social media, but not Twitter, because Twitter is toxic. We can talk about Twitter, but later. But I want to talk about something interesting with you, which is Instagram, which is super popular amongst young people. They don't even know Twitter. They're like, you're on Twitter? What is Twitter? Who goes to Twitter?
They're not
right?
interested.
But Instagram is huge. And why I'm talking to you about Instagram is I've seen actors, but also a lot of models, a lot of male also, but a lot of female models have huge following, actors have huge followings, and everybody goes to Maldives. I don't know. All the famous...
It's a beautiful place, huh?
Yeah, so for some reason, everybody goes to Maldives.
It's a beautiful place. What reason? It is a beautiful place to go.
Oh, okay, fine. I mean...
For some reason, we're not getting any money from Maldives, trust me.
Andheri is pretty nice too, and Bandra is also nice.
But oh yeah, really? Try holidaying there.
Yeah, at Juhu Circle. Okay. No, the point is that a lot of the images that are put of women, the bodies are very like super slim and super and I have tried to do a diet. Maybe it's just me, but it is very hard to get that flat stomach, man.
You want my gym routine or my
no,
diet
I don't want
routine?
your gym routine. The question is, a lot of these young girls, boys, are looking at these images and it is creating perceptions of beauty in their head. While at the same time, film actors and models are, in a way, symbols of physical excellence. Because they look beautiful, they are fit, and I'm all for that. But let's say a girl who's a little overweight or who doesn't have super sharp features or doesn't have such nice hair, is that, okay, is that something, they've just said, please, you can have some audience questions, so it's great, guys. Please think of questions, raise your hands, I'll come to you. They've not said anything, ye kya pooch rahe ho? Don't ask this. No, it says, please open the floor for questions from audience, can keep some extra time for that, if that's okay with you. Okay, so, is that something that is real, like a girl who's 12, 13, she's not seeing Instagram of scientists. She's not seeing, female entrepreneurs so much on Instagram. For whatever reason, she's seeing this beauty. So the girl, I'm wondering if a young girl will grow up and say, this is what I need to be. I don't need to be a scientist or a professor or a banker or, I don't know, whatever other job, or a businesswoman. How do you view that? This constant posting of perfection, physical perfection.
See, first of all, Instagram is a visual medium. Okay, so whatever visually looks good to you, you double tap it, right? And I don't call it the fault of an actor or a model or a public figure who has good body. It's not that person's fault that he or she has such good body, and they work really hard on it, as you know, they work really hard on it. It's not easy to get that body, and they would want to flaunt it. So I wouldn't really blame that person for it. If you really want to follow a scientist or someone who's an entrepreneur, beyond Instagram, there are other portals where you can go and follow them. It's for you to decide. If you're on Instagram, you're actually looking for some visual validation of sort, right? You're not looking at you're not on LinkedIn or you're not on like other portals, right? So you go there if you would want to. It's okay if you would want to see them. Now, if you think that that is beauty, if you think that's the best, that's something that's there in your head and you need to tweak it to understand that this is not the ultimate goal in life. So that's something that you need to work on yourself. You can't blame the actor or the model or the public figure that why is she posting, yeah. I mean, I've worked really hard on it, I will post. So what's wrong? And why the onus of doing the right for the society ends up falling on the shoulders of an actor only? भाई वो कुछ अच्छा करे तो problem, बुरा करे तो problem है ही है. So हम बहुत थक चुके हैं यार.
No, so since it is Alpha Woman and since it is about, you know, like making sure we don't impose pressures on women to look a certain way.
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing. Does it?
See,
and I'm not blaming anyone. I am not saying that iski galti hai.
So I can't generalize and answer for everyone. I can answer for myself. I would want to use my social media, Instagram, to be as authentic as possible with whatever flaws I have. Sometimes I have terrible grammatical errors and I let it be because that's me. I am not perfect. I mean, of course, I would want a picture to look good, but what is good is very subjective, right? I like a picture, you might not like that picture. I find this body to be perfect, you might not find it perfect enough. So I will deal with my social media authentically with what I think is good. And then if you like it, you are making it an aspiration. So that's in your head. You need to change your aspirations then if you want to like change the way you look at Instagram. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I am opening the floor. Khol do. For questions from the audience. So guys, if you have questions, please raise your hands and someone with the mic will come to you. Please introduce yourself, your name, what do you do? Are you homely or not? Are you settled, well settled, looking to be settled? Whatever you feel like sharing.
Ek aur hai, girly girl. I've heard that also. You're a very girly girl.
Girly girl. Girly girl. I've seen Innocent Divorcee.
Can you hear me?
Have you seen Innocent Divorcee? That is damn cool.
Okay.
As opposed to Guilty Divorcee.
I'm well settled, mother of two, anchor with ABP News. So Taapsee, my question to you is that because the topic is alpha female, I want to know, are you an alpha female because of the roles that you have done, or you do consider yourself an alpha female in social setting as well?
I realized this alpha female tag only lately that it's getting associated with me. I did not plan my career in films basis getting this tag eventually. And it was very organic with the person I am, the mind I have. I started choosing these kind of films that were very close to my real identity, the kind of person I am, the way I think. And that is why this tag that I got eventually was the result of, you know, so the person I am chose the kind of films I do, which eventually gave me the tag that I got. So it's together. So it's the films I've chosen are not some very strong career moves, most of them. They were just coming out of my instinct and gut feeling when probably there were a lot of people who said that why would you want to do this? This is not really the ideal film or the role to take up. And I till date keep hearing that with a lot of films I do. And there is my gut and instinct which has gotten me here and which has given me this tag. So I don't have to work extra hard to maintain this facade and then get a tag. So it has been a combination of both. Thank you.
Hi तापसी.
Hi.
मैं शोभना यादव एबीपी न्यूज़ के साथ एंकर हूँ. मैं जानना चाहती हूँ कि तापसी पन्नू के लिए सफलता की क्या परिभाषा है? क्या साल में 20 फिल्में, 24 घंटे में 48 घंटे काम करना या अपनी पसंद का काम करना? सफलता की परिभाषा.
दो चीज़ें बताऊंगी. एक, जब मुझे रेस्टोरेंट में जाके मेन्यू राइट से लेफ्ट ना देखना पड़े, और दूसरी चीज़ जब मुझे रात को 15 मिनट के अंदर अंदर एक अच्छी गहरी नींद आ जाए और 8 घंटे से पहले उठूँ ना. मेरे लिए बस यही है. ये दोनों चीज़ें अगर चल रही हैं तो मैं बहुत सक्सेसफुल हूँ.
हाय तापसी, मेरा नाम मृत्युंजय है. मैं एबीपी न्यूज़ में रिपोर्टर हूँ. मेरा सवाल ये है कि क्या पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी पर बॉलीवुड बटा हुआ है? आज योगी आदित्यनाथ का शपथ विधि है, दूसरी बार मुख्यमंत्री बन रहे हैं. बहुत सारे बॉलीवुड के एक्टर, एक्ट्रेसेस, सेलिब्रिटी वहाँ पहुँचे हुए हैं, तो उनको एक टैग लगा दिया जाता है कि ये प्रो मोदी या प्रो गवर्नमेंट वाले हैं. और वहीं दूसरी तरफ कुछ ऐसे एक्टर एक्ट्रेसेस हैं जो ट्विटर पर अपनी बात लिखते हैं तो उनको एंटी गवर्नमेंट कहा जाता है। तो इसका असर क्या बॉलीवुड के कामकाज पर भी पड़ता है और क्या वाकई में पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी पे आप लोग बटे हुए हैं?
एक्चुअली मुझसे अगर पूछो ग्राउंड रियलिटी के मतलब मेरे साथ मैं लास्ट कुछ सालों में अगर लोग मुझे पॉलिटिकली इंक्लाइंड किसी भी डायरेक्शन में मान रहे हैं, मुझे ऑन ग्राउंड कभी भी फील नहीं हुआ कि मुझे कोई पिक्चर मिली या मेरे से कोई छूटी इस वजह से। कितनी बारी ऐसा होता है कि जो वर्चुअल वर्ल्ड के अंदर दिखाने की कोशिश की जाती है कि क्योंकि ये एक सर्टन आइडियोलॉजी के हैं, इनके ऑपोजिंग आइडियोलॉजी वाले इनको सोशल मीडिया पे पुल डाउन कर रहे हैं। मेरी पिक्चर के कलेक्शन को बिल्कुल असर नहीं पड़ा उससे, ना ही मेरी पिक्चर की व्यूअरशिप को जब OTT पे रिलीज़ हुई उससे कोई फ़र्क पड़ा। वो तब भी हाईएस्ट व्यूड फिल्म थी पिछले साल की नेटफ्लिक्स की। सो ये सब जो होता है ना, ये एक फसाड वर्चुअल वर्ल्ड में एक बड़ा वर्चुअल फसाड क्रिएट किया जाता है कि ये ऐसा हो रहा है, बट ग्राउंड रियलिटी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री के अंदर मैंने तो एक्सपीरियंस नहीं करी है। अभी वो बाहर से वर्चुअल वर्ल्ड के अंदर ऐसे रिफ्लेक्ट हो रही है तो मुझे पता नहीं, वो ऐसा हो रही होगी तभी आप पूछ रहे हैं, बट इन रियलिटी मुझे तो ऐसा फील कभी नहीं हुआ है ऑन मतलब फिल्म इंडस्ट्री के अंदर। हाय, हाँ जी,
हेलो हेलो। तापसी, फिल्मों की अगर हम बात लें तो ऐसे इंडस्ट्री में 5-6 टॉप एक्टर्स हैं जो जब फिल्म साइन करते हैं तो 70% प्रॉफिट ले लेते हैं या कोई 100 करोड़ रुपए चार्ज करता है। इंडस्ट्री में बार बार लगातार अब ये बात उठने लगी है, पहले ये बात नहीं होती थी, कि पे पैरिटी को लेकर जो बात है कि जो डिफरेंस है, जो हीरोइन को पैसे मिलते हैं और हीरो को पैसे मिलते हैं, उसमें बहुत ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क है। सबसे पहली बात तो आप इसे किस तरह से देखते हैं? और इसी से जुड़ी दूसरी बात यह है कि ये भी एक सच है कि हिंदी फिल्म इंडस्ट्री जो है वो हीरो सेंट्रिक है। हीरो को देखने ज़्यादातर लोग जाते हैं और इसलिए हीरो को बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे दिए जाते हैं। तो ये 2 एस्पेक्ट हैं, आपका टेक क्या है?
ये दोनों इंटर-रिलेटेड हैं और आप सही बोल रहे हो। और ये रीज़न इसके पीछे मुझे नहीं समझ में आ रहा है, क्योंकि मुझे समझ में आता है कि अगर बहुत ही गुड लुकिंग हीरो, मैचो हीरो है तो लड़कियां उनको देखना चाहती हैं, लड़के भी उन्हीं को देखना चाहते हैं। तो मुझे लग रहा है कि सारे के सारे एक हीरो को ही एस्पिरेशनल और वाओ तरीके से देखना चाहते हैं। जब हीरोइन सेम चीज़ करती है, हीरोइक चीज़ें करती है ऑन स्क्रीन, उसके लिए लोग वर्ड ऑफ माउथ का वेट करते हैं। सो ये जो सारी जो पे पैरिटी का इशू है वो सिर्फ बिजनेस तरीके से अगर देखा जाए तो कितने लोग आके बॉक्स ऑफिस पे टिकट खरीदते हैं उस पर डिपेंड करता है। इंडस्ट्री में ऐसा नहीं है कि वो ये सोच के कहते हैं अच्छा नहीं ये फीमेल है तो इसको कम ही देंगे। वो इसलिए वो सोचा जाता है क्योंकि द थिंग इज, एक बड़ी अजीब सी टर्म है जो इंडस्ट्री में यूज होती है, बम्स ऑन द सीट। सो हाउ मेनी बम्स ऑन द सीट कैन यू गेट? So it's a very weird term to use, yeah, but I mean to tell you, it's about how much audience can you attract at the opening of a film. That decides how much money can you actually ask for. So अब होता क्या है, अब हीरो ड्रिवन फिल्म है, उसकी तो एडवांस बुकिंग हो जाती है, वीकेंड कलेक्शन निकल जाता है। वीकेंड कलेक्शन इज बिकॉज ऑफ द स्टारडम दैट यू हैव, दैट पीपल वांट टू गो एंड वॉच यू रिगार्डलेस ऑफ हाउएवर द फिल्म इज। Monday onwards, you get to know how good the film is. Then if it's really good, it will go on. Otherwise, it will crash. For a female, Monday से ही हमारी शुरू होती है, क्योंकि वो फ्राइडे, सैटरडे, संडे लोग वेट करते हैं, पहले वर्ड ऑफ माउथ सुन लेते हैं लोगों से, फिर जाएंगे। जिस दिन ऑडियंस ऐसे सोचना बंद करेगी, वो फीमेल ड्रिवन फिल्म को भी सेम तराजू में तोलेगी, उस दिन ये जो पे पैरिटी का इशू है ना इंडस्ट्री में वो खत्म हो जाएगा। इट बिकॉज इट्स बिजनेस एट द एंड ऑफ द डे। सो आई हैव रिसेंटली टर्न प्रोड्यूसर, आई नो एग्जैक्टली द मैथ्स, द आर्ग्यूमेंट्स दैट गो बिहाइंड डिसाइडिंग money. It's all basis that opening weekend that you command as a star. Nothing else.
तापसी, छोटी सी जुड़ी इसी से बात की, हाल ही में गंगूबाई
वैसे मैं एक बात बोल दूं, सारे नहीं हीरो के लिए पिक्चर देखने जाते हैं। मैं तो नहीं जाता, मैं तो हीरोइन देख के जाता हूं।
Oh, very nice, Chetan.
मैं तो चाहता हूं हीरो हो ही ना पिक्चर में। क्यों करना
I wish there were more like you then.
ऐसी किताबें लिखो ना चेतन,
I wish there.
किताबें भी लिखो जहाँ पे प्रोटैगनिस्ट हमेशा महिला हो।
लड़के देखने के लिए पैसे कौन देता है?
देखो मेरी पिक्चर आ रही है, उसका ये है पोस्टर, ये आ रही है, अभी देख लेना। मैं देखती हूँ एडवांस बुकिंग में तुम बुक करोगे कि नहीं।
डन।
ठीक है।
बिल्कुल।
तापसी, इसी से जुड़ा एक छोटा सा सवाल। हाल ही में आलिया भट्ट की फिल्म, संजय लीला भंसाली की फिल्म गंगूबाई काठियावाड़ी आई थी और उस फिल्म ने बहुत अच्छा बिजनेस किया और इसीलिए उस फिल्म का बिजनेस को बहुत अच्छा माना जा रहा है क्योंकि एक हीरोइन लीड कर रही थी प्रोजेक्ट को। आपने भी कई ऐसी फिल्में दी हैं जहां आप लीड कर रही हैं। आपको लगता है ये बदल रहा है, अब धीरे धीरे ही सही इसमें बदलाव आ रहा है?
ऑब्वियसली आ रहा है, वरना 8-10 साल पहले जब मैंने शुरू किया था इंडस्ट्री में काम करना, आई वुड हैव नेवर इमेजिन्ड कि ये दिन आएगा कि 8-10 साल बाद भी मैं प्रोटैगनिस्ट वाले रोल कर रही होंगी, क्योंकि बोला जाता था 6-7 साल से ज़्यादा सीजन नहीं लास्ट करता एक हीरोइन का। उसके बाद यू हैव टू मूव ऑन टू चेंजिंग द रोल्स ऑफ डूइंग द सपोर्टिंग कैरेक्टर्स और इवेंचुअली जस्ट डिसाइड टू वॉक आउट. The fact that I can still do, and there's so much more I know I can do, and people want such kind of scripts to be written and to watch them. OTT world की वजह से कह लो या audience का exposure बढ़ चुका है उस वजह से कह लो, but it's totally different from 10 years back. So I can see that due credit where it's due. People are ready to watch films, but they still wait a lot for the word of mouth to happen. Where the Gangubai was concerned, I mean, I was so glad that that happened. I think एक heroine की film जब चलती है ना, so it opens doors for 10 other female-driven films. So I heartily celebrate the fact that it happened. But I really hope in the future, the number of screens that film got, 3,000 screens, which I don't know, people, तो आप लोग सब number देखते हो ना, इसके 100 करोड़ हो गए, 50 करोड़ हो गए. There is a certain logic and maths behind it. There are number of screens, there are number of shows. I have had films which have released along with a film which was driven by a male, and purely on the basis of the fact that that was a male-driven film and this was a female-driven film, I've gotten lesser number of screens for my film. So I had to prove, my film had to prove its worth in the weekday to overtake the other film. So the day this becomes a level playing field, 3,000 screen. मेरी आज तक की मतलब बदला, which collected close to 90 crores, it was released in some 900 screens. That's it. And it ended up making close to 90 crores. That was a huge success for a film that released only on 900 screens. So it eventually 3,000 screens, which is at par with any big hero film, should be given to a female protagonist as well. And then you see, why will it not collect numbers like Gangubai did? So yeah, let's make it a level playing field is the idea.
Hi, Taapsee.
Okay. वैसे कहानी की वजह से भी फिल्म चलती है. जैसे कश्मीर फाइल्स अब हीरो की वजह से चली या हीरोइन की?
उसके पता है भी कितने स्क्रीन है?
उसके तो पता नहीं, मेरे को लगता है कि
4,000.
4,000? Wow. Wow.
Hi, Taapsee. I'm very homely. I'm already mentally in local train, going back home. So my question to you is that you are always under cameras, always viewed by the audience. So there must be a constant pressure of being perfect. And nobody is perfect. So sometimes the imperfections are not taken well by some people, especially in the age of social media.
Yeah.
So there could be a time, a phase where you must have doubted yourself. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with it?
So this is something that I was just discussing with Chetan before we came on stage as well. This profession in particular is all about how people perceive you. It sometimes goes beyond the talent that you have. It's about what people think of me that matters more than how good or bad I am, which is a very difficult position to be in. I'm not going to glorify it. It is a very hard position to be in. To day in, day out, being judged and discussed on everybody's dining table, to live up to the requirement of being good in every household, and because that's going to decide how long your career is going to go, is not easy. It's one of the most mentally taxing professions to be in, because my success, failure lies in the hands of other people and the perception more than how good or bad I am, which is not an easy position to be in. So it is very hard. I'm not allowed to have bad days. I'm allowed to be always happy and be very receptive of whatever's happening around. So I'm not going to glorify it saying that, it's, yeah, this is it and it's fun and all of that. No, it's not fun. But that's the price I pay to be here today, to do the kind of work I do. These are the collaterals that come with my profession that I have embraced, along with the joy I get to be in front of the camera. So, you cannot get the best of everything. So this is the negative that comes with it, that I have to swallow with a pill that is not really good in tasting. But yeah, this is what I have to live with. It's hard. I'm not going to give you any solution to it because there is no solution. You have to get through it. Sorry?
Okay, I think I've been told many times that we are out of time. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And for being so open and candid. And all I would say is, you're not just an alpha female because you are inspiration to males also. So you are an alpha human being. And
thank you so much.
You.
Thank you.
Thank you for having.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being kind to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Taapsee. Thank you, Chetan. Please do remain on stage. We'd like to present you with a small token of our gratitude for taking out time today. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Vinod Pandey, Director of our Advertisers, and also Rama Paul, Marketing Head, ABP Network. Please join us on stage, Mr. Pandey and Ms. Paul. Taapsee, we'd like to thank you for this unfiltered conversation. Always refreshing to hear from you. Thank you very much, Chetan. Thank you, Taapsee. Ladies and gentlemen, Taapsee Pannu. Thank you. All right, I think now we have full attention here. Taapsee's, Taapsee's quotes, Taapsee's talk, frank talk with us has really brought a smile to our faces and also told us about some things we are perhaps not so pleasant about always being in the limelight. We now come to our next keynote address that centers around a very fundamental and relevant topic. Now, through the day today, we've spoken about the inequities that exist in our society. And now, as we move ahead, if we're looking to create an inclusive economy, it becomes so imperative that businesses focus on the value they add to society as much as they focus on their profits. Purpose and profits necessarily don't have to be exclusive of each other. And perhaps there is time now to reinvent our approach towards this philosophy. I'd now like to extend a very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Dr. Anish Shah, Managing Director and CEO, Mahindra & Mahindra. And to facilitate this address, please welcome Shankaraya, prominent journalist and author. Our speakers will just be joining us in a moment, but in that time, I'd like to take you through some of the other eminent speakers who will be joining us later today. The Honorable Minister Nitin Gadkari will be with us and also Vidya Balan. For now, please put your hands together for Dr. Anish Shah and Shankaraya.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think we will try and make up some time by riding on one of Mahindra's SUVs, maybe travel the distance faster. We have an interesting session, and for the youngsters in the audience, I think this will be very important because we're talking about how businesses are getting reinvented, how the environment is changing, and not just the pandemic and Ukraine. There are other things happening in the world. So without much ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Anish Shah, Carnegie Mellon alumni, CEO and Managing Director of one of India's largest diversified groups, and somebody who's a thinker and in the entrepreneurial sense and also in the academic sense, given his title that he's doctor. He has a doctorate from Carnegie Mellon. So, Dr. Shah, this title of the session is Reinventing Business, Purpose and Profit. I mean, some would call it semantics. Milton Friedman very famously had said that the only social responsibility of business is to make money for the shareholders. Now, that has clearly evolved. Some say that the Friedman thesis is dying, or some have even declared its death. How do you define your concept of reinventing business?
So Shankar, first, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. I feel that the world has changed a lot, more so over the last couple of years than what we've seen over the last decade. And in the world today, it's become even more important to focus on purpose. This is not a new concept. It's a concept that has been there for many years. And in fact, I'll go back to the time when our founders started this company in 1945. They put out an ad in Times of India outlining the principles under which Mahindra was born. And those principles outlined the dignity of labor. It talked about meritocracy. It talked about the fact that caste, creed, nor color shall come in the way of someone going ahead in the organization. It talked about responsibility to society. And it outlined, in effect, what purpose meant to the organization. That has been the DNA for our organization for the last 75 years. And today it becomes a lot more important because the society is watching organizations around and looking at whether they have purpose and a responsibility to society or not. And that is how society and consumers will make their choices on where to spend their money. So purpose is not just important from a sense of societal values, it is also a key driver of profits today. And what our job as leaders is to look at how do we drive both purpose and profits. Because if we focus on purpose and live our responsibilities, we will make good profits for our investors.
So social responsibility in some ways adds to your brand value and enhances your ability to expand your market share, in a sense.
There is a clear benefit on brand value. It is who we stand for. Today we see a lot of consumers deciding what they buy and where they buy from based on the values that they associate with. And that is important.
That's very interesting because, I mean, to go back to the history of the formation of Mahindras, it came after the, just before the party. It used to be Mohammed and Mahindra. And I remember this ad, now that you mentioned it. It was based on the trusteeship concept of Mahatma Gandhi, that the entire ad was done. Now, when we talk about purpose and profit, we have to, in the current climate, and I'm using climate as a pun here in terms of climate change also, we have the concept of environment, social responsibilities, and governance. Now, to the skeptical Indian, this sounds a bit like old thepla in new packaging. But, and the more it is propagated, Larry Fink wrote a letter to people sequencing people, planet, and profits. Is this doable? Is it real? Do you see this happening? Or is this one more attempt at repurposing?
So the reality today is that world temperatures have risen by close to 1 degree. And if they go up by another ½ a degree on average, it will cause a lot more natural disasters. We are already seeing many of them around the world. So climate change is not a topic that is an intellectual topic anymore. It is one that's real. And if we don't act on climate change today, then we will have failed. As an old Native American proverb says, we do not inherit the world, we borrow it from the next generation.
Correct.
So that is our responsibility for the next generation. And this is something that we have to act in concert. It just cannot be left to governments to say, you please take care of it. The private sector has to play an important role. Our sustainability journey started 15 years ago because we recognize the importance of these actions. But what I will also add is that this is, again, not divorced from profit. So if we look at the various projects that we have done for sustainability in the last 5 years, we've done 2,000 projects. These projects have had a cumulative return on capital of 24%. And that is because we are reducing energy. Today, we use 25% less energy to produce one vehicle than we did 5 years ago. We are water positive across all our plants, collectively across the group. We have the first carbon certified plant in India, in Igatpuri. We've just recently launched net zero homes. This is Mahindra Life Spaces. And construction and operating homes or residential homes constitutes about 40% of carbon dioxide that's released in the environment. And that is something that, again, we are addressing. So all of these things add up to create a significant difference. And therefore, corporates have to partner with governments to lead this effort.
So when you say that homes account for 40% of the emission, it also includes construction material that is used in a living cause. So how does a company like you sort of work at the idea of zero carbon emission or net zero carbon emission or reduced carbon emission? You are, of course, a major supplier of something that consumes fossil fuel, which is vehicles. You're also building. So is the focus cost effective for you? Have you been able to sort of bring down your costs and be more profitable for your stakeholders? Because at the end of the day, that also matters.
So I'm going to come back to purpose first and then talk about profit in terms of how to balance both. The Paris Agreement talks about net zero by 2050. Our target is to be net zero 10 years earlier, by 2040, despite producing all the vehicles and tractors that take up a lot of energy. We are well along that path, though what I would also add is, for the world to reach that goal, it will require new innovation. And we are partnering with various companies and associations around the world to drive some of those innovations. Now let's take a micro example on the profit example that you mentioned. We have a business that has three-wheelers, and we've been manufacturing ICE and CNG three-wheelers for many years. Over the last year, we've been selling electric three-wheelers. Today, 70% of our three-wheelers sold are electric. So we've seen that transition from ICE to electric already. And we have a 65% market share in the electric three-wheeler market.
Okay.
So as we think about profit, this is a very profitable business for us that is helping the planet as well. So it's about finding the opportunities, it's about acting on them, and therefore profits will follow. If you work with purpose, profits will follow.
So there is some truth to the Larry Fink theory of triple bottom line.
There is truth to it, and what I would add to it is that if an organization is not purpose-driven, they will likely find it difficult to survive over time.
So just to transit from this area to another aspect, I mean, everybody here is watching the news, what's happening in Ukraine for 2 years. This is probably the first physical conference that's happening in Mumbai after a long time because of the pandemic. So we've had disruptions in a series, so to speak. How do you, as the CEO of a large diversified group, look at and plan for disruption? Now, mind you, the disruptions are both on the supply side and also on the demand side. Now, on the supply side, we know now that what we thought was a global supply chain is essentially a Chinese supply chain. And on the demand side, people's tastes are changing. The way products are being offered are changing. I think yesterday or day before, Deere launched its first autonomous tractor. People are looking at autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles. Airbnb is looking at more people working from home, so Airbnb bookings are changing. How do you sort of look at these transitions and how do you plan and execute your idea?
So Shankar, this is one important aspect of reinventing business, which is how does one thrive in uncertainty? And that's what led to my comment earlier that the last 2 years have seen a lot more change that we've seen in the last decade or maybe even more than that. It reminds me of this old game I used to play as a youngster called Whack-A-Mole, where something popped up, you knocked it down with a hammer and 2 other things popped up. So you're constantly knocking things down with a hammer. And that's exactly the world we're living in today. The new car that we launched, the XUV700, has 130 semiconductors. And every week we might get a call from one of our component makers that the semiconductor for this component is not available, so we can't send you this component. And our team has to then work through production schedules to say, well, we can produce the car, but we can't put the wireless charger in there. Or we can't put this other thing in there because we don't have that one. And how do you plan for that? And the lessons we've learned from that are first around leadership mindset. The positivity that we bring in terms of how do we tackle these problems. The second one is around scenario building and planning ahead. Even as we look at Ukraine, we have built various scenarios around potential impact to commodities and start planning for things 3, 6, 9 months in advance and have plan B, C, and D laid out as well. The third is around what I call optionality, which is build options, pay a certain price for it, and then we have the ability to double down the option. So these are things that we are doing to be able to thrive in uncertainty. And the final comment I'll make here is, this reminds me of Taleb's book from a few years ago called Anti-Fragility. And that really talked about the concept of not surviving in uncertainty, but thriving in uncertainty. And that's the opportunity for organizations. How do we become stronger and how do we thrive in uncertainty?
So there's this quote that was often attributed to Lenin, that nothing happens for decades, and then in weeks, decades happen. So we are seeing all kinds of acceleration of adoption of technology, of practices, human behavior. So within your group, how do you deal with this whole new animal called work from home?
One thing we've always done well is had a lot of empathy towards our associates and have had the flexibility to meet their needs when they wanted to. Work from home is something that we're looking at closely in terms of what form should it take? Should it take a form that everyone can work from home whenever they want? Should it take a form that you have a couple of days where you work from home and 3 days in office? Because recognize the one important thing that's lost in there is the ability to create, to innovate, to be able to meet each other. I can get my work done for today by working from home or for the next week, but that's a transactional outcome. But if I really want to thrive in the organization, I need to build the relationships, because it's the relationships that's going to help me make the difficult actions done. And that's difficult to do to work from home. So that's part of what we're looking at right now. And the other aspect to that is fairness. Why should some people work from office and others work from home? So I don't have an answer to it today, but that's part of the discussion we're having internally, getting input from various others. And what we will come out with is some flexibility that allows people the balance. At the same time, that allows people the ability to collaborate, to build relationships, and to be able to get further in their careers, because that's important for everyone as well.
In a business where, for particularly automotive design, engineering, and you have other businesses, Mahindra Tech, where collaboration is an essential aspect. So in the past 2 years, and now, this whole talent battle, I'm told in Bangalore, people are giving BMW 7 Series cars to hire people. So in this talent battle, how do you sort of engineer a structure where you can get collaboration? I met somebody this afternoon whose title was Chief People's Officer, which was an interesting aspect, take on what's happening in the human resource market. how do you get people to collaborate? Because you have a factory which requires physical presence, unless you have sort of automated it using the facilities of Instrumental or some such company, or you have Tech Mahindra where you can do construction requires physical presence. How do you sort of have the different pieces? I'm asking you this question as somebody who's heading a diversified group. I mean, you can't be possibly having the same set of solutions for all the entities. How do you engineer this?
So that's exactly right. It cannot be the same set of solutions. Each entity has its individual problems and solutions. So what is done for Tech Mahindra will not necessarily be done for our auto business. So first it starts with empowerment. Each entity is free to make its own decisions around what it needs to do. What is common though is the culture and the values. And that is something that we closely guard. That culture is based on the foundation of values, and the behaviors that we want to propagate are being agile, bold, and collaborative. So the kind of people that we attract are ones who like the values and what Mahindra stands for. That in itself is a starting point to be able to get the right people into the organization. And then as I see the culture around them, that automatically gets them to start collaborating more, because that is feedback that is given to people regularly, saying, how good are you on this spectrum of being agile, bold, and collaborative? And that drives that behavior across.
So I wanted to move a little towards you as the person rather than towards, I mean, you can't separate the CEO from the person, but I mean, this is more towards. So Mahindra is always known to sort of has a tradition of breaking traditions. When Anand Mahindra took over, he's a liberal arts fan who went to learn to make movies and came back to make tractors and jeeps, and SUVs came much later. You come from a background of finance, consulting, and you have a large industrial space, plus the construction space, plus the tech, esoteric tech space. How do you deal with how did you deal with the transition? How difficult is it for you? Was it?
So the transition actually has been a very easy one. I think the biggest factor in it was the way it was planned. So Anand and the board planned a very smooth transition over a period of 18 months, where I spent 12 months as a group CFO and then took over this role. Also, I had been in the group for 6 years prior to that, which made a huge difference in terms of having understood different businesses. And the role that I was in at that point was head of group strategy, which gave me a very close look at all the businesses. And that was huge in making this happen. The second thing that we did was what we call continuity and change. We were very specific about what changed and what did not. And why was it essential to change certain things? We had to ensure that the values, that the foundation we have stayed constant over time. And that communication was very important, especially as a time when the organization is looking at a new leader and saying, are we going to be completely different from what we were? I liked what I had before in Mahindra. Is that going to stay or not? So that continuity and change was extremely important. And the third part is our leadership team. They made a huge difference, because it's not one person who can do this. It has to be the team together that does it. So
there's one question that got left out in the earlier pitch I just wanted to. So I remember in somewhere around 2005-07, Mahindra had acquired companies which were dealing with materials innovation, in bringing down, in changing the energy stuff. I remember something to do with the battery company also. Has that progress? I'm asking this in the background of, we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are talking about supply chain resilience. So I want you to answer this question in two parts. One part is, how is Mahindra doing that story in terms of innovation, getting the technology here? And what do you think, are we headed in the right direction in terms of how the policies are formulated, the PLI schemes and others in terms of the Atmanirbhar Bharat idea?
So I'll take the second part first. I think the policy formulation has been very sound. And what we are seeing is a tremendous amount of incentives being given to make in India and be Atmanirbhar. So from that perspective, it will create a much stronger boost. And we will start seeing the effect of this really over the next 5 to 7 years. On the first part, I would say two things. First is, we actually launched a solar business, which is right around the time frame you're talking about, which would be linked to what you recall. And that solar business today is one of the largest solar companies in India, and is one that we want to take to 10 gigawatts in the next few years. So that's a huge success for us. But I would highlight the second part there, which is when we talk about Atmanirbhar, it's about the ability to manufacture world-class products in India. It's not just manufacturing in India. And this is where I would talk about the latest car that we have, the XUV 700. It's not just a world-class car. It will stand head and shoulders above other world-class cars. And the only thing I would tell everyone is, just go and test drive. You will see it for yourself. Right? But that's what makes us proud. It makes us proud that as an Indian company, we've been able to do all of this in-house. And that's what our Mahindra Research Valley has done. That's what our colleagues there have done in being able to manufacture something that is well above what we would call world-class.
So you mentioned that you were in a solar power space. You were working in other directions also in terms of climate change. Are the current policies, the PLI schemes, others, do you think they're enough? There needs to be more to be done? My own take on the solar thing is that we think too much in terms of gigawatts and megawatts, whereas the real story is in converting homes consumption into, making it renewable. You know, there's a kilowatt hour story there. How do you see the evolution? Do you think that we will, because we are fortunate in India, we have 300 days of sunlight, unlike other countries. And even if the lux levels differ, we have a huge coastline, we have wind power, we have tidal power. Are we doing enough to get to that point?
So the cost of solar energy in India is among the lowest in the world. And from that standpoint, for utility-based solar plants, I think we are ahead and well on track. Where we need to do more work is distributed solar. Exactly as you said, having solar panels on roofs of homes and having that generate electricity. That in many ways is implementation now. It's not about needing incentives in that space. It's about companies going out there and being able to implement it. It does require scale, and that scale will take some time to build. And then the third aspect there is technology, because we need to be able to get new technology where you can put films on a car and have that charge a car, for example, or to have films on a window of a building, and that creates electricity that can power the building. So these are various innovations that need to come in, and that's something where we will have to partner with others around the world to get them in.
Okay, I think now I'll switch back to the personal. So leadership is essentially education, insights, and experience. What I call the experiential. You meet people, you learn something from them, somebody advises. So for the young audience here, what is that one insight or advice that you got, if any? Did you have a moment of epiphany in that sense? What is the one insight or advice that you got, which kind of defines you, your work, and your persona?
If I were to put it down to one, I would say an advice I got many years ago was, to get control, you have to give up control. And I must confess, I didn't understand this for a long time. Right? Because one always wants to control. But as I understood it over the years, it was about empowerment for leaders in your team. I must say my children contributed a lot to helping me understand this. Right? I have 2 sons, and after many fights with them, especially with the older one, I understood what it was to give up control and achieve a much better outcome. Have the trust. So trust, empowerment, all of these things come in with that. And that develops a better relationship. Very difficult to do, but it's one that I found to be liberating in many ways.
So you mentioned that it took you some time to sort of get a grasp of this. I remember this sometime in 1980s, my first boss, Ramnath Goenka, in pure Marwadi financial economic lesson said, आदमी 8 घंटों काम करे, ब्याज 24 घंटों काम करे. It took me some 5-7 years to understand what exactly he meant. So when did you get this advice of, it's a very interesting concept, to get control, you give up control. When did you get it? Was it somebody, a professor, a father, somebody who gave it to you? And how long did the transition take?
So this was one of my bosses about 17 years ago. And at that point, I had just come in to run a fairly large business. And it was part of, in a sense, training, if I were to call it, as to how to run large businesses. And it did take me, I would say, a good maybe 7 to 10 years to really understand the full implication of it, because the first reaction always was, no, I must be in control. I must understand everything that's happening. And it takes time to be able to give that up. And once you've done that a few times, sometimes very gingerly, very gently, okay, I'm going to sort of give this up. I'm going to see closely what happens. But after you do that sometimes, and then you see, okay, this actually works. It works better. Then you feel more confident that, yes, you can do that more.
So this sort of goes back to what Vinash Pandey and we were discussing, that you hire good people and let them do their job. That is the primary principle, I guess. Give up control to get control is a very good theme to work with, and a lot of people who are running businesses or departments in the group should sort of imbibe that. Before we end, I asked this question to a lot of people. What is that one book that you would recommend management students, people who are coming up, who are in studying, who have just started on their career, that they must read?
This may sound a little corny, but I would say the one book that has had a huge influence on me is a book called Mission Success by Og Mandino. This is a book I read when I was in 11th grade.
Can you repeat that? Let's repeat that book's name for them.
Mission Success.
Mission
Success.
Success, okay.
And I say it's a bit corny because it's in the realm of the power of positive thinking. But what that book really unlocked, which is similar to what another book did, only if you understood the meaning, which is Jonathan Livingston's Seagull by Richard Bach, is essentially to say that the only person to put boundaries on yourself is yourself. So you're unlimited in your potential. So if you can envision something, then you will find a way to get there. And that's one book that I give to many friends and colleagues and juniors even today, because that's one that has had a dramatic impact for me at least.
So finally, before I get called on time, and I know you have a hard stop to get somewhere, how does a CEO who's running a large group unwind? What's downtime like for you?
Downtime for me is time with family. And this is one over the years. I would work very hard over the weekdays. I'd typically come home at 10, 11, often later than that. But weekends were with family. Even for my boys growing up, they had my calendar on Saturday and Sunday. Yes, sometimes I needed to work on Saturday and Sunday, but try to avoid that as much as possible. But they knew that they could decide what my activities were going to be. And for me, that's been the best downtime. Over the last year, it's been a little tougher to have the weekends. I try to get a day to myself, if not 2 days. But that again is family time, because that to me is the best way to recharge.
No, my question extends beyond that. So what does Dr. Anish Shah do when he has, say, a couple of hours to spare? Does he click on Netflix, Amazon? Does he watch ABP News? We are all news junkies. Indians, I think, are the biggest news junkies in the whole world. You'll never find any Indian anywhere who does not know what's happening in some remote part of the world. So we are all news junkies. So what does Dr. Anish Shah do? Does he take off for a trek? Does he do sort of pick up the remote and switch on the TV, watch TV, or go out for a movie? What does Dr. Anish Shah do?
Okay, so you may not like this answer, but as a family, we haven't watched television for the last 15 years, except for watching cricket. Right? News comes from various sources now. But what I love doing is playing cricket with my boys, or playing soccer, or we often play American football as well. Love watching sports, love reading, just sitting and having a conversation with my wife. Traveling, not a 2-hour activity, but we make it a point at least twice a year to go out and travel as a family and spend some time. So these are the set of activities that I would have.
You're not that unique in the sense that you don't watch TV. Most of the youngsters in the audience, they all watch on their mobile phones and devices. I think more news is consumed on devices and on portals than anyone else. My final question, what is the book that, what book are you reading just now?
P.G. Wodehouse.
Ah.
Right, so I often will read P.G. Wodehouse for downtime. I think it's one of the best ways to relax. Business books, I've read many over the years, but I look at that more as sort of work rather than downtime. So I would talk about P.G. Wodehouse. Leave It to Smith is the one at this point.
I'm currently reading a book by Sebastian Mallaby on power laws. It's the history of venture capitalists. If anybody who's into books, they should read this book. This is a brilliant book on how venture capital actually started in the East Coast about 40 years back. Great book to read. But thank you, Dr. Anish Shah, for your time and elaboration on what is a very difficult transition and a very difficult subject to sort of elaborate on. I think he deserves a big round of applause for
Thank
the
you.
candid answers and for the clarity which he gave. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iyer, and thank you, Dr. Shah. Please do stay on stage. We'd now like to present you with a small token of our thanks. I'd like to invite Pushant Chakrabarti, Chief Financial Officer, to do the honors. Mr. Chakrabarti, please join us on stage. Dr. Shah, it's been so wonderful to listen to you today. Many takeaways from